Well, thank you, Deborah, and thank you, my honorable Zoom lady who's always there for us. So I suspect that we will be joined by a few other people when they realize, oh, we start at 7 o'clock on the nights that the Marx brothers are presenting. And I'm very excited tonight because I've been in denial for at least a week that Pesach is right around the corner. Which of course means opportunity to clean and plan and sing and invite and see family and all of that good stuff. And really looking forward to it. I'm happy this evening to welcome my co-host, Mark Kronisch. Hey, Mark.
Hello, Mark.
You know, I really need to check the video settings and the filters to see whether or not there is a, I know there's one of these, but I don't know if there's a Marx Brothers, if I can get,
Mark, that's the Blues Brothers. Get it straight.
No, you're absolutely right. So I'm going to forget about that for now. So I think we have a lovely night planned. And I say that because I have no idea what Mark K has up his sleeve. But hey, we've done it twice before, and what we're bringing to the table meshed both times. And so I'm looking forward to this. And this is a night of fours. Now, I want to let you in on a secret here, which is that my part of the presentation, I'm going to go first, and then I'm going to hand things over to Mark. And I also suspect, I trust that Mark, any time that you want to jump in and share something based upon anything that I say, and vice versa, that's going to happen too. My teachings are going to be mostly on topic of the significance, the spiritual significance of the number 4. But Mark is going to be touching on the Kabbalistic mystical, what's embedded in there. I'll be touching on that a little bit too. Mark, I apologize in advance if I step on your toes in a Sia or in any of the 4 worlds, but in a Sia you might yell. But I'm going to be jumping around a little bit, concentrating on the Seder, but also concentrating on the number 4. So before we begin, let's name some important 4s. Oh, we've already begun, actually. Let's name some important 4s in our life, not necessarily have anything to do with the Seder. What are some things that you associate with the number 4? Dan Glazer, your hand is up. And
I am the youngest of 4 boys in my.
Very important to know where you fall in the hierarchy of your family. 4 boys, boy, your parents had their hands full. Deborah Leska, then Linda Landis.
4 seasons.
4 seasons. Dum bum bum ba da da, dum bum 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 ba da da, bum bum ba da dum bum bum. Gail Garland, you had your hand up.
My 4-legged loved ones, Emmett and Tilly.
Yes, of course. And we know that dog in Hebrew is a kelev, which spells out kelev. It's like a heart. That's why we love them so, and they love us so. Anybody else on number 4 that's important to you, or just, in general? Jay.
Well, it's important to you too, Mark. 4 bases in baseball.
Thank you very much. I was waiting for that. You win the prize. It's like you say the secret sport, you win $100. We should do that. Maybe in most meetups, Deborah Les, you just disappeared. But Meira, maybe in most meetups, if a person says, you come up with the word, a person says that, they win a certain prize or something. Okay, we'll keep that in mind. I kind of like that. If we could have the little bird fly down. All right, 4 bases in baseball. Carol Ann.
4 grandchildren.
Oh, isn't that nice? 4 grandchildren. Woohoo! Esther Klein, welcome. You're having dinner. Then, of course, there are the 4 horsemen and the 4 winds and the 4 skins, which that was what I wanted the Washington football team to be renamed. They did it. They didn't listen to me. I don't know why. All righty. So now let us get a little bit, all seriousness aside, let's take a look at what we have in store for the number 4. 4 is the value. of the Hebrew letter Dalet. And as I go on, please, any of you who have a reflection on anything that I say, throw up your hand virtually or wherever you be in your room, and we'll weave your contribution as well. The Hebrew word Dalet, of course, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet is the number 4. And Dalet, the Hebrew letter Dalet, itself is a word. As it says right there, Dalet means door. By the way, if you want any of this information, I have a PDF file, just let me know and I'm happy to send it to you, okay? Now, why is a door so important at all? Not a rhetorical question. Why is Dalet, which means door, significant in not only Jewish tradition, but psychospiritually? Mary Rita.
For me, it takes me to another place. It's a portal that takes me to the next place on the journey.
Beautiful.
Like from here to there.
And we keep in mind that on the doorposts of our houses, there is a mezuzah, right? Which is a transition object, right? And where we note that we are coming or going or coming and going and coming and going, and to take a moment just to acknowledge the threshold. Isn't that a great word? The threshold that we are crossing over. Now, the number 4 signifies completion, wholeness, or fullness. And we're going to get to various understandings of what that's all about. And of course, we're going to get to the number 4 in the Seder in a little bit. The Maharal, 16th century commentator, Judah Lo ben Bezalel, the Maharal of Prague. His name was Morenu Harav Loi. Now, if you didn't know before, note that how someone is named, many of the rabbis have like acronyms as their names, or they're like, he's the Maharal, right? And other people have shortened names. So see where that comes from. Morenu Harav Lo, our teacher, right? Rabbi Lo, the teacher Lo. So Mahara, right? And then the Lamed or the L is from his last name. So that's where Maharal. Now, before I go into his teaching on 4, does any of you know what he is most famous for? And Prague is the hint. The Golem.
The golem. Right.
Thank you, Dan. I beat you in Jeopardy, like tonight anyway.
Yeah, well, I had to unmute. Okay.
Good point. Like I am.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So here's his teaching, and we'll get to more of his teaching later on because he also has teaching specifically on the Haggadah. He indicates that 4, he says that 4 indicates place. So you see these different things that he's teaching about. I put in green. Because a place extends in the 4 directions. It also symbolizes diversity, as the 4 directions are independent of each other and have no part in common. And 4 is a number of separation and represents dispersal in all 4 directions. So in diversity, there's dispersal, but it also at the same time, there is a place there. There is a makom that is kind of like the place that holds it all together. And when you think about that, you might think of Hashem being the one that is kind of like the dot in the middle of it all, like God in the center, right? From which everything radiates. One of his proof texts for this, he takes from the prophet Zechariah. Ki ka'arba ruchot hashamayim perashti etchem ne'um Adonai. For I have scattered you like the 4 directions of the heavens. All right. So there again is the number 4. And if the quote from Zechariah is saying about scattering, what's it referring to? The number 4 representing exile, representing being dispersed to the corners, right? And being exiled from divinity. Here it means really places, because these four exiles, the sages teach us that the four statements speak to four exiles from Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome. So various times that the people were exiled. Okay. And of course, the Passover story is all about being exiled, crossing through a narrow place into a promise of something more expansive than where we were. If you see at the bottom of the page, I added a little bit about the Maharal, Judah Lowy ben Bezalel. Among his many descendants, he's got good yichus. Were Shner Zalman of Liad. He's the author of the Tanya, right? And the founder of Chabad, Hasidism. Through his paternal line, Rabbi Lowy is the ancestor of many prominent Jews, including Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the seventh Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, and violinist Yehuda Minuhin. That's pretty good. But to top it all off, the paternal ancestor of Reb Nachman of Bratslav. Alrighty, so he comes about it honestly. I'm going to stop there before I go on to the next slide. Any questions, comments, reflections? Basically what we've covered so far is one commentator's understanding of the significance of the number 4, and we're going to get to more. Meira.
I'm not sure I understand where the concept of completion or wholeness comes from in the context of all these other things.
All righty. So just stay tuned and hold on, because I think by the end, you'll be able to put it all together very soon. It might be on the next page. I'm not quite
Now, I don't know if this is stepping on yours teaching coming up, but completeness, wholeness is another way of saying shalom. Was that, were you going to go in that direction?
I was not. You want to hold on to that? You want to go there now?
No, I'll hold on to it.
Okay. But what I will say about that is, I hope I don't step on your toes, is that shalom is one of God's names. Right. And
It's got 4 letters.
Yeah, and there we are going there, Mark. Okay. And so if something happens where I begin something and you want to go, no, that's like what I was going to do. All righty. Next. Where's my, I got to get to that screen. There we go. There we go. Pesach. Now I'm jumping around. I'm not going to get right to your question, Mira, because I warned everybody before. We're going to throw all the coins in the air. Hashem will keep some and we will collect the rest and try to put it all together. Number 4, continuing. Pesach is preceded by 4 special Shabbatot, right? Shabbat Shkalim, Shabbat Zachor, Shabbat Parah, which we just had. And this coming week is Shabbat HaChodesh, right? And it will be Rosh Chodesh this Shabbat. The holiday itself has 4 names. Chag HaPesach, which is the festival of Passover. What's that about? To remind us that the houses of the Israelites were passed over by the angel of death. And so they were spared from losing their freedom, their firstborn. Second name of the holiday, Chag HaMatzot. That seems pretty obvious. The festival of Matzah. To remind us we must eat unleavened bread. Because the Israelites had to leave Egypt so fast that the bread did not have time to rise. You know, there are machlokets about whether that's true or not, but there's going to be, I'm offering a traditional view of a lot of things tonight that if I was just giving you my take on things, it might be a little different. But I thought we'd start from scratch to make sure we're on the same page. Third name, Chag Aviv HaAviv. It's the festival of Aviv, of springtime. Younger than springtime are we, right? To remind us that we are in spring, the season of renewal, which always reminds me that we always have asparagus at our Passover Seder, because to me, you got to wait It's for the good asparagus in springtime. And of course, the parsley that I've been trying to grow ever since Tu B'Shvat. The fourth one, Chag HaCherut, the festival of freedom, or Zman Cherutenu, the time of our freedom, to remind us of perhaps the most important part. We became a free people after centuries of being enslaved. Our sages teach 4 statements speak to the 4 exiles of Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome. Now remember, this is commentary. This is not necessarily reflected in sacred text. This is oral Torah. What are the 4 comments? These 4 lines, actually there are 5, but these 4 are also going to correspond pretty soon to the 4 cups that we drink, right? And so what do those 4 cups correspond to? These 4 statements. In Shemot 6 and 7, wherefore say unto the children of Israel, I, Yud He Vav He, am, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rid you out of their bondage, and I will redeem you with a stretched out arm with great judgments, and I will take you to be a people, and I will be to you a God, and you shall know that I am Yud He Vav He, I am your God, which brings you out from under the burdens of Egypt. I will bring you, I will rid you, I will redeem you, and I will take you, right? Of course, the 5th one, which is not in here, is that, and then I will bring you to a land. And some people understand the cup of Elijah to be that, right? The 5th cup of the Passover Seder. But these are the 4 specific psukim, the 4 specific lines that connect to the 4 cups that we drink throughout the course of the Seder.
And in the Seder, they're known as the 4 promises.
Do you want to keep going about that, or you want to hold
No,
on?
I'm going to, later I will.
Okay, great. So I got about 10 minutes left. So here are the Seder 4s. The Seder 4s are what? The 4 sons, or 4 children, to bring it more up to date. But remember that that when we say 4 sons, that is Ba'oraita. That is right there in the text of the book of Shemot, right? In Exodus. 4 sons, 4 glasses of wine, which we just alluded to, and a little bit later, if I have time, I'm going to be talking a little more in depth about those 4 glasses of wine. 4 questions. Because if we didn't have questions, we wouldn't be earning our Jewish, the Shabbat. 4 mitzvot. 4 mitzvot. What are the 4 mitzvot? Comment upon us at the Seder, Matzah, Maror, right? Matzah, Maror, Haggadah, and the 4 cups. So to eat the matzah, to eat the maror, to retell the story, right? And of course, the 4 cups. Now, 3 matzot also become 4. It's a little sleight of hand. I could do a little trick there. How does 3 matzot become 4 matzot? Oh, Meir, you have your hand up. Okay, you want to jump in there before I ask this question? Okay. How many matzot, Meir, are there in the matzah cover on the Seder plate?
Before or after the leader?
Before.
Oh, there are numerous, but there are 3 tiers.
Exactly. Three tiers in like the special matzah bag that I got from my bar mitzvah or from my rabbi friend. All right. And sometimes they are understood as the Israelites, the Kohanim, right? And the Levim. How do we get to 4? Well, it's because soon after beginning the Seder, what do? We break the middle matzah into 2 parts. One part, the afikomen, is hidden to be eaten at the end of the Seder. So, abracadabra, 3 matzot become 4 pieces of matzah. And there's a lot of beautiful teachings, and I hope you're going to have one, Mark, for us. I didn't ask you to do that, about the hiddenness of when 3 becomes 4 and that afikomen, but a lot of good stuff about that too. Another place where we have a 4, Echad mi yodeya. All right, 4. And when we get to 4, we say 4 are the mothers of Israel. Who knows 4? Sarah, Rivka, Leah, and Rachel. Okay. Next page. The 4 questions. I loved, I love that little cartoon at the bottom. That was as the 4 different children. The 4 questions, according to the Abarbanel, 15th century Portugal, are meant to set the tone for the evening. We eat matzah maror, which remind us of the bread we ate as slaves and the bitter life we had as slaves, and then dip our food and recline, which are acts of the aristocracy. So the question here that he's raising, is this a night to remember the bitter experience we had, or is it a celebration of freedom? Or is it both? The questions of the Passover Seder, the 4 questions, focus on freedom and slavery, freedom versus slavery, right? Of being born from slavery into freedom, of passing through the birth canal of the sea and being born as a nation. Let's talk about the 4 sons for a moment. I'm coming in for a landing here. The 4 sons represent all the elements on the intellectual spectrum. I'm calling them the sons just to be traditional here, so please forgive me. And you're going to see that these explanations of the 4 sons are probably as traditional as you can get. And so just know that when you come to your Seder with different understandings and explanations for the 4 children, right, and how they fit in holistically, on the intellectual spectrum, they're going to be probably different ideas than these to add to our conversation. So the Divrei Negidim, that is the writing of the Maharal of Prague about the Passover Seder. He explains that the 4 sons are a complete set. First, the Chacham, the wise son. He wants to know. He researches, he inquires, he pursues knowledge and wisdom. He becomes wise. For this reason, he's called the wise son. It's not like he was birthed that way. He searches out. He's curious. He's inquisitive. He's a pain in the ass sometimes, but he reaches for the highest potential of himself. But there are times he might get a little full of himself. The wise guy son. Okay, so I thought I had to add a little commentary there. I just can't help myself.
Oh, I'm going to add a lot of commentary later.
I hope you will. Good, because the Tom, the simple son, right, is neither intellectually superior nor inferior to the wise son. That's an interesting comment, I think. However, he does not pursue intellectual growth. That's an interesting distinction for the Maharal between the wise son and the simple son. I don't think I've ever heard that before, that he has the same potential as the wise son, but he doesn't make use of his innate ability to really to learn, and integrate what he learns. So he does not pursue this intellectual growth. He doesn't strive for greatness. When he sees something out of the norm, he'll inquire. Okay. However, unless there's an impetus to inquire, no query will be forthcoming. For this reason, he is termed simple. Okay. I'm not quite sure I understand that completely, but I want to, and so I'm going to come back to it at another time. She'eino yodea alish'ol. The one who does not know how to ask is simply not as smart as the other 2. And this, I would, of course, take the Maharal. I would definitely have a different opinion about this, but let's go on. Even when he sees something that is unusual, he doesn't inquire about it. Oddities are no inspiration for education. You just know how to ask even when questions are most definitely appropriate. Okay, so just a quick comment on this. First of all, what's with his parenting, his having been parented in a way that he's not making the most of his innate curiosity like every child has? And on the other side of it too, we understand that not saying anything often is a sign of a depth of presence, as opposed to the one, descending into silence is sometimes understood as just being more present. And, maybe he has a meditation practice that the Maharal doesn't give him any credit for, right? But just because he doesn't say anything out loud, the Maharal is saying that there's something less going on for him. But I wonder whether has most depth of all the children. Finally, the Rasha, the wicked one, is on a par with the Chacham, of course. He is smart. He does have the drive for bigger and better. However, this drive is motivated by a desire to do evil. He has no urge to do good. Any knowledge gained is used for the pursuit of the amoral. His wisdom is not put to good use. He doesn't sur me'ra v'yaseh tov, as it says in the Psalm. He doesn't turn from evil and do good. He's happy in the place that he is, just being a troublemaker. However, of course, we might look at him as someone to have this capacity is to get into good trouble. Right? So perhaps it's that side of us that needs to tap into the Rasha in order to make real change in this world. So I did say that I had more, especially about the secret of the wine and each of the 4 cups. But I want to leave some space here, first of all, to say hi to Chana and to Meira and Miriam, who have joined us since we began. Sorry, on these Wednesday nights when Mark and I are teaching, we started a half hour earlier. And I'm going to turn to you all, first of all, any comments or reflections before Mark Kronisch picks up the baton. And Carol Ann.
Earlier, when we talked about Dalit and the door, I think Mira Rita spoke to it being an opening on the journey. And I was thinking of when during the Seder, we open the door to hope for the Messiah to come.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
A beautiful connection. So you've just given us all a gift, which is this year when we go to the door to open, we're going to, what will happen for me anyway, I can't talk for all of you, that this discussion about 4 and Dalit will deepen my experience of opening the door for Elijah.
Me too.
Which I think is why we're all here tonight, just to give ourselves a little bit more, a little prep for Pesach and to hang our hats on as we go. Anything else? Anyone else? Mark Kronisch.
Well, first of all, I am so glad that you gave a traditional interpretation of the 4 sons, because in a couple of minutes, I'm going to turn that teaching a little topsy-turvy, which I know you appreciate. But I wanted to add a few things about the 4s, a few things about 4s. And then what I'd like to do is I have some wonderful teachings from some Hasidic masters around Pesach. One happens to be Reb Zalman. And then I had a wonderful opportunities to spend time with both Rabbi David Zeller and Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, and received some wonderful teachings around Pesach that I'm going to share. And if there's time at the end, I'm going to open it to 4 categories of question, some from each of the 4 worlds. And I'll get to that if there's time. All right, so to add to the traditional interpretation, some people say that, Reb Zalman says that we need to teach the children each to their own capacity, knowing that there are 4 basic learning styles. We learn visually, auditorily, kinesthetically, and different combinations of that. Some people look at the 4 children with four feelings: the angry child, the scared child, the naive child, and the joyous child. But what I'd like to do now is give a teaching from Reb Zalman about the four children. Reb Zalman says, the Torah asks us 4 times to make sure to communicate with our children. And he says, well, we mean, it says 4 sons, but Reb Zalman makes the point of saying we mean sons and daughters, as well as the child within our own self, which I really like that, our inner child, because that is just a wonderful way of looking at some things when we turn inward. Because as we will see, a lot of teachings are on the outer level, but most of the Hasidic masters really stress the inner work of Pesach. And so we'll get to that in a moment. Let's see. Children know when we are posing and when we are leveling with them. The Seder can be a very real forum for the speaking from the heart of what we really believe, what we really stand for. The more real our statements, the more likely it is that our children will pass that on to their own children if we speak the truth of the heart. They will say then, my parents leveled with me, and they told me what was in their hearts about God and the world, and I formed my vision freely from their and my experience of what is real. We will be teaching our children. So take the time at this Pesach and really share from your hearts. Now, that was from 1989, a teaching that Reb Zalman put in the journal called New Menorah. Here's the thing that, Mark, you started to allude to. Reb Zalman also says, not only are there 4 children who ask, there are also 4 persons in the parent who answers. The body, the feeling spirit, the intellectual, and the soul. The intuitive God spark in all of us. What a blessing to give voice to these 4 levels and to open them up to our children. I love that Reb Zalman, he goes into the 4 parents, because that is so relevant. Now what I'd like to do is I want to teach, give a teaching from Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. And this, I learned this in the early 80s at a retreat with Reb Shlomo. May he rest in peace. For all his flaws, Reb Shlomo really had a good heart, and he's very missed. So he says this. He says, the wise one, he is the farthest from God. He knows what questions to ask, and he knows the answers. He's so learned that he is a slave to his learning. He's the farthest from God. Now, most people would say, well, the wise one, it's topsy-turvy. The wicked one, he's fighting, he's struggling, he's got some questions, at least he's asking. So he's next up. You'd say that he would be in Yetzirah. The simple one, he's not a simpleton, he's a simple man, and simple means whole, complete. And there's nothing more simple than God. God is one. Our problem is that our ideals about God are complex and complicated, but God is simple. We can tap into that simple way of knowing. So we'll put that simple one in the category of Bariyah. And I love this one. the one who does not know how to ask the question. Reb Shlomo says he's connected to the highest world, the world of vision. He is connected so deep that he can't even ask the question. This is Atzilut, the level of Moshiach, the level of vision of hope, the level of Tikkun Olam that we all are striving for. The one that doesn't ask the question, Reb Shlomo says, is the one closest to God. That turns it all topsy-turvy to me. So he also says that we need to check out all those parts of us that relate to each of the sons. What interior parts on our interior, our inner soul are those things that we need to relate to each of the sons. Now, I'm going to go through a couple of other fours, and then I'm going to relay some teachings from some other Hasidic masters.
Mark, can I interrupt for a moment?
Yes, please.
Dan
Yeah.
Blazer had a question or a comment. Dan?
Oh, I can't see the screen, so that's good. You let me know when that happens, please.
Yeah, thank you. When you were talking about the son or the child who does not even know how to ask, and you said that he is totally connected to the one, it made me think of a pre-verbal child who is not yet messed up with thoughts and words, but just intuitively the world is one.
Wow.
And so that's, so young that words have not, there's nothing to ask. It's already, the world is, his world is.
Love it. The world is, that is so profound. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of times, my wife is a therapist, and we get into lots of discussions, and she says that a lot of times when they're doing therapy, people sometimes can't bring up what's underneath everything, because they learned it in the pre-verbal, so they can't say it in words. They can feel it, they can intuitively know it, but they can't speak it. So wow, that was really profound. Thank you very much for sharing that. All right, so I'm going to talk about the 4 matzahs, but a little bit different. Now, I know that we break the matzah and to the afikomen, but I'm not going to address that at this point. But before I do that, I want to say, I don't know if some of you that are my age, I remember during when I was growing up, there was a real move within the Jewish community to help the Jews in Russia. And so there was a movement to put the 4th matzah in to the matzah cover, representing the Jews in Russia that couldn't participate in Seder. Is that irony right now or what? But I have, tradition says we have 3 matzah, but if we look closer, there's a paradox. The matzah is both the bread of affliction, the bread of slavery, and at the same time, it's the bread of freedom. So I counted that as 2 matzot, and we put those in with the 2 matzahs that represent the 2 challahs that we celebrate on Pesach, on Shabbat, and so it made 4. Now, I also went to Hillel, please give me some creative license here, people. I went to the Hillel Sandwich, and I said, wow, Hillel Sandwich. A sandwich has 2 pieces of matzah, one on top and one on the bottom. So I said, well, how about if we call the top matzah of the sandwich the bread of slavery and the bottom matzah the bread of freedom? And what else do we put in there? Well, we put in there sweet charosis, and we put in there bitter herbs. And I said, wow, that really does represent the plane that we live in, the world of Asiya, because in the world of the soul, there is no duality. God is one. Everything is one. But we live in a world where we have a blessing and a curse. So I looked at the charosis, blessing, the bitter herb, the curse, freedom, slavery, good, evil, right, wrong, light, dark, day, night. Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. And we can look at that as the Yetzer Hara is our ego. Yetzer Tov, our good inclination, that is the soul level. And what's interesting about looking at it that way is we can say that, it slipped out of my mind. I'll come back to it. I had a great thought there, but it just went, just went. Let's see, do I have any other four things? I already mentioned the four matzahs. And I'm going to save the four questions if there's time at the end, because I really would like to give over some of the teachings from some of the Hasidic Rebbes. This is again wonderful. Now this is about Rebbe Nachman saying, but I learned it from Reb Shlomo. He says that Rebbe Nachman said that the real miracles of Pesach were not the parting of the sea, not the staff, not the 10 plagues. The two real miracles of Pesach were, one, we had a vision of freedom, a revelation of our true purpose and the purpose of our lives. I remember our Reb Marc talked about vision being about God's will, about before there's any kind of creation or any kind of formation, first God had a vision of it, and then it came to pass. So he says, we had a vision of freedom, a revelation of our true purpose, the purpose of our lives, the purpose of creation. The Passover was a revelation to every Jew, a peak experience, a glimpse of our deepest purpose. He says, from a slave consciousness, only knowing the reality of slaving, not even knowing that freedom even existed. The slaves didn't even know that there was an alternative called freedom. And so they had this vision of freedom. And so Reb Nachman says that the second real miracle was that the revelation didn't blow us away. It didn't wipe us out. It didn't completely overwhelm us. It didn't blow our minds, he says. He says we were able to see the vision and turn it into action, into reality. As a slave, we took a leap of faith. We followed Moshe and we left Egypt into the unknown. So the inner strength and fortitude to continue and go towards freedom. I thought that was just beautiful. Here's a teaching from Rabbi Zeller, David Zeller. I attended a Shabbaton of his in Boston. He said, thank God we feel pain so I can change. He says, the pain of slavery, I know what it was like to be a slave, how bitter it was. He says, when we taste the bitter herbs, it's a reminder of the slavery, but it's also, I can change. The slavery was so bitter, it made me leave. Reb Shlomo says, thank God I have pain in my life, so I can change my life. Without pain, I might not know joy. If I feel my physical and emotional problems and addictions, I can change them. Pesach is the fixing of the sadness when we ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, when we left the garden and became dualistic and lost our vision of oneness. On Pesach, we remember our revelation of freedom, the joy of leaving slavery and becoming free. What Reb Shlomo is referring to also, it's when we leave the ego and go into the soul level. And what I was trying to think before, I just remembered, I was going to say the chametz. I said I was talking about ego. The chametz that we take out of our homes is anything that inflates our ego, our selfishness, our I instead of our we. And so the inner level of this is that we take out the chametz from our lives. We clean our house. We do the spring cleaning on the outside and on the inside. Here's another teaching from Reb Shlomo. He says the matzah represents the human heart. When we break the matzah, unless I have a broken heart and recognize the brokenness in others and the brokenness in the world, I will always be a slave. Unless I feel the pain in others and their brokenheartedness, I'll never be free. Reb Zeller says, everyone who sits at the Seder has a possibility of revelation. We must come with a level of faith and an open heart. He says the telling of the story in the Haggadah is in itself a healing. It's therapeutic. We tell so we can heal. It's the telling. We tell so we can have a current revelation of our purpose. We can have our own personal vision. In our own comfortableness in slavery is because we're in Mitzrayim, the narrow place. Mitzrayim, Egypt, the narrow place. And we don't want to leave the slavery behind because of the comfort. When we're ready to do the inner work on ourselves, we'll raise our awareness and discover our true nature. Mark, I know you're the timekeeper. How much time do I have?
You can go on for another 10 minutes if you need
Okay.
all that time.
I want to give now a teaching from the Baal Shem Tov, which changed my whole view of what Pesach is all about. The Baal Shem said, in the same way that there was an exile and a redemption in Egypt for the whole people of Israel, so there is an exile and redemption in each and every person. Draw near to me, my soul, and redeem it. Psalm 69. Draw near to my soul and redeem it. Therefore, we pray for universal redemption. We must first pray for the redemption of our own soul. Now, the Hasidic master, Yehuda Ari-Leib, Alter of Ger, teaches that the real exile is the exile of the soul in the body. The depth of our present exile, he says, is reflected in the fact that we are totally focused on the body and all things physical, while the soul and its needs have been cast aside. Before the redemption of the world can be achieved, he concludes, we must free ourselves from our bondage of the Yetzer Hara, our lower self. Oh, let's see. We are told in the Talmud that the rabbis debated for almost 3 years as whether it was better that man should have been created or not. In the end, they decided it would be better if he had not been created. But since he already has been creative, let him examine his past errors and try to mend them. And let him reflect carefully before engaging in future actions. According to Rebbe, let's see, let me just check my note. Gedaliahu of Linitz, I don't know if I have that Linitz right, one of the members of the Baal Shem's inner circle, he said the Baal Shem not only taught that there is both personal salvation and collective salvation, he saw a direct link between the two. When everyone has been redeemed personally, then the collective redemption will follow automatically. He understood that all the goodwill in the world would ultimately come down to nothing unless it is accompanied by hard work for inner perfection. Only when we have freed ourselves from the hold of the lower self can we become effective divine instruments to transform the world. Without individual transformation, humanity will never be redeemed. That says that we need to do tikkun neshama. And by virtue of us all doing tikkun neshama, the healing of the soul, then tikkun olam will be a byproduct. And so it's not to say that we shouldn't put efforts into direct action in tikkun olam, but doing that without doing the inner work, what the Baal Shem Tov is saying is that humanity will never be redeemed that way. So yes, let's get electric cars, and yes, let's strive for racial justice. And yes, let's remember that unless everyone is free, no one is free. But at the same time, let's look at our own selves and do the inner work necessary for the transformation of ourselves, for our people, for Moshe, and for the world. Now, I can go on for, I'm going to cut mine short also. Mark, I have another couple of teachings from Reb Zalman and a couple of other masters.
Can I jump in here for a second? Now
Yes,
that you
please.
mentioned
Yes,
Reb
please.
Zalman,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of two things that in your pointing to tikkun ha-nefesh, we're doing a repair of our own souls, that's necessary in order to have a greater impact on the world, and tikkun olam, that both things happen to happen simultaneously. It makes me think of Friar Richard Rohr's work at the Center for Action and Contemplation, because basically where he comes from is that you can't have one without the other, that if you have a spiritual practice, that spiritual practice has to then result in action in making this world a place where, you know, that our children deserve. And then to top that all off, the Reb Zalman, of course, famously saying the only way to get it together is together. But first, you got to get it together. You got to work on yourself, do the inner work, which is clearly why Jewish renewal is the great grandchild of the Hasidic movement, as well as why we are within the Jewish renewal movement also brethren with our, you know, reform movement kindreds, who for the most part have been mostly about social action. Okay, and they are beginning to see and embracing the spiritual side of it. So Richard Rohr, Reb Zalman, birds of a feather, in recognizing basically what you were just teaching about, and I think it might have been the Sfat Emet that you were referring to.
When you shared an email from Richard Rohr recently, I signed up for his morning meditations and sharings. I really like him.
Let's stop for a moment to see if anybody has any reflections or comments, challenges, additions, subtractions. Dan Glazer.
So I'm curious about the tikkun nefesh, your own personal work, and in a simple explanation how one does that. But second of all, I would posit that doing your personal work entails connecting with other people. It's hard to do this just solo, alone, looking at yourself, and all this. It requires relationships and requires connection. You're not trying to fix the world, but you're trying to connect and belong.
I'd love to give a couple of answers to that question.
And I've got one too.
Yeah. Our tradition, one way is to study and practice Musar, which looks at a lot of the different attributes that we have as a person, and we strive to improve on a lot of those inner attributes that we have. Let me give you some examples of Rabbi Marc, you can throw some in too, of different, I'm drawing a blank, of different Musar attributes. My brain is like stopped for a second. Let me come back to that. I really want to address it, but I just, my brain went blank again. But I also want to say that another way is through inner meditation. That silence is very important to our inner work because it really helps our connection with God. And that is very important on the path of inner work. As you say, inner work with others, inner work with our connection to God. Actually, we can look at it in the four worlds. Doing the physical inner work against our addictions, our things in our life that we want to improve in our lives, like we do on Yom Kippur. We talk about the mistakes that we've made. We can talk about on the emotional level, that would be the relationship level, like you say, with other people. And the meditation would come on the level of the Atzilut, the level of the soul. Marc, why don't you give your answer, and I'm gonna try to get my Musar brain working.
Well, I'm actually wondering whether, Dan, you're asking a much simpler question, or looking for a simpler answer, which is, how do we do this? Like, what is the inner work that we need to do that is connected to others, right? That then, as opposed to, you know, sitting on the meditation cushion, then what? So I want to answer what I understand your question to be, for something I read, the late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs says that the true redemption lies in the fact that the middle matzah, when broken in two, has to be shared. So out of our brokenness, we then take that brokenness and we pass it around. And we are not complete, they can't complete the Seder until we do that. So there's an understanding, my understanding is there's no completion until we hold out our hands in that Michelangelo moment, right? And that is the spiritual practice as well, right? That perhaps rises out of a solo practice that we have, or rises out of just one's innate desire to serve the world. And I mean, it's not the only way. It's the only kind of spiritual practices are not all contemplative. Haf, did you have a question?
Well, I wanted to make two comments. One about what we're talking about right now, which is, to me, the techniques and tools of getting there isn't as important as the desire to be there, so that the equilibrium and the balance, how many debates have we had about inner peace versus world peace, et cetera, et cetera. And there are lots of ways to do it, but the goal, I have always thought, is to find a way in your own heart that you believe you have found an equilibrium and a balance that's comfortable to get there. And that, to me, is the most important thing, not the how you do it. Second thing, I wanted to say thank you for the expansive definition of the definitions of the children and the sons, because it like I was like doing a Myers-Briggs test on myself as you were going through each of them. And which am I? Where do I fit? Where do I fit? Who am I? And fortunately, I was able to come up with a composite that I feel comfortable with based upon the more broader definitions and flexibilities. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I want to add something. I like what you said, Mark, about the Afikomen. I'd like to share a custom that has developed at my Seder over the years. And this comes from, Reb Zalman said, the only way to get it together is together. And he also said, whenever he would talk about Moshiach, the Messiah, he would always call it Team Messiah. It's a team effort. We all contribute to the coming of Messiah. And so what we do at my Seder is we pass instead of filling the cup, we pass it around the table. Everyone puts a little bit of wine into the cup to represent that it's all of our efforts to bring the Messiah to help heal the world. And each person, when they put their drop of wine in, they say what their vision of hope, what can they personally do to raise up their inner self on the inside and the outside that will lead to tikkun olam and true freedom for ourselves, true freedom for others. So I wanted to be sure to get that in. Are there any other comments or questions at this point?
If not, I would like to take over with a little teaching about wine.
Go ahead.
How are you, Mark? Are you basically wrapping up here, or do you have?
I'm good, but like I said, if there's time, I want to put out there a different formula for asking the 4 questions. But you go ahead, take what you need. If there's room, I'll put in.
Okay. Thank you for your generosity. All righty, let's get back here. What's showing there? No, I want the next page. I want the next page. There we go. The secret of wine. Now, I'm not going to get to all 4 cups, but I do want to get to how we feel. Now, I don't want to assume that we are all drinkers in this room, but just the concept of drinking wine. Someone in this room happened to have the honor of actually sharing a Seder table with Reb Zalman, Zichrona Livracha, a number of years ago, and who shared with me the fact that right before the welcoming Eliyahu, was it?
Wait, I'm going to tell my own story.
I know. I was just leading up to handing it over to you, Judith, because it's a different way for the mind to get bent.
Well, it was, I was so blessed for all the years that Reb Zalman was alive and I lived in Boulder. I went to his Seder table. And the year that marijuana got legalized in Colorado, Reb Zalman pulled out one of those like wooden Native American peace pipes and loaded it up with pot, and we all got stoned. And then we had to cultivate and we had to share like what kind of vision we wanted from Elijah, and then open his front door and the wind would blow in because, you know, his house was facing the foothill. It was like right in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. In fact, that's where his grave too has the same view as his house did. And
oh, wait a minute. Was it sativa or indica?
It's Judith cannot begin to remember, but I'm sure it was whatever the good stuff was. And to this day, at his gravestone, whenever you go there, there's a mason jar with a lighter and a pipe and pot in it. And I don't know who keeps refilling it, but you can always go there and have a vision, stoned or not.
Well, thank you, Judith, for sharing that. Of course, the reason why I asked you to share that is the expanded consciousness, or at least the letting go that occurs when we smoke. But and there are other ways to reach that state, yes. And one of them is by drinking wine. So I don't know what I was typing in there. We tap in with wine. It was a typo, and I don't remember what I was saying, but I'll continue. The Hebrew word for wine is yayin. And as the Talmud elaborates, then has the numerical value of 70. This is the same value as the word sod, secret. As such, yayin nichnas, sodot yotzot. When the wine goes in, secrets come out. Right? I'm sure.
Comes out with the pot.
It comes out with a variety of
better secrets.
That's right. So here's the teaching that wine comes from the hidden depths of the grape, and it ferments in a concealed place. When we drink wine, we reveal its latent powers. Similarly, our redemption comes from a deeper, hidden universe where it is revealed that everything is eternally unified and whole. In order to reveal the power of redemption, we need to internalize it and experience it. Yet, in our world of multiplicity, oneness is perceived by means of four. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Four worlds. Sia, Yitzira, Bria, Atzilut. Four winds, four directions. When we break the redemption down into a four-fold process, we can begin to digest it. This is why we drink 4 cups of wine at the Seder. And I'll add that there's a cumulative effect, if you know what I mean, to those 4 glasses of wine, which is why I don't drink that much and don't drink a full glass all the time, because I just want to drink enough so that I can be present and lifted up a little bit by the experience, and it's a way to enter into the Seder, of course, and one of the 4 mitzvot, as I mentioned before, that are incumbent upon us. Mira bracha.
I missed what you said about whose teaching this is.
I'm sorry, I didn't say whose teaching it is.
Okay, that's why
and I forgot to write it down. But if you'd like a copy of it, I'm happy to send it. Just let me know in the chat. And then if you Google a few words in there, I'm sure you'll you'll find, because I did a bunch of research and I found this. This is not mine, right? Although I mean, the line from the Talmud about the wine going in and secrets come out. I mean, that's from the Talmud, and whoever this is lifted it from there, and I knew that teaching before. So just let me know, or if you don't, or just send it to me in an email. Elliot, I see your hand up.
Right. I'm driving, so I'm not.
Okay. It's like Jimmy Stewart in Harvey.
Have you no righteous indignation, Rabbi Mark? Anyway, I just wanted, on the topic of intoxication, every time I've been at a chassid's house for Shabbat, whenever they raise the cup for the blessing over the wine or have any wine, it's always full to overflowing. It's like, they are just into it. And I think I recall that as the Shabbos meal progressed, after the meal, a bunch of the Hasids sitting together just kept drinking, and the conversation took off in amazing direction. Similarly, my understanding is that the tradition is Kabbalah was written after midnight, written in the sense of the Chabad, the Kabbalists getting together and drinking throughout the night into the dawn, and that's one reason that the Zohar is as strange and wonderful as it is, partly. But I always agree with you. I agree with you that the drinking of the 4 cups is meant to free us up and intoxicate us. It's a different kind of liberation that's a great tradition of Judaism. So thanks.
And I'm assuming that it was you, Judith, who put into the chat that Rabbi Shefa reminds us that there's many technologies to reach a level of intoxication, which is not necessarily about drinking or smoking, but being ultimately so present that we can't tell the difference between Haman and Mordechai.
Yeah, and clearly Reb Shefa pushes chanting as the way to altered states of consciousness.
And the Sufis do dervish dancing. They just spin around and spin until they alter their consciousness.
Yeah, and actually I want to mention it's an extraordinary moment. I don't know how many of you have seen the Beatles documentary, the long one on Disney Plus, where Paul is basically birthing the song "Get Back" in front of our very eyes. How many of you have seen that? It's worth just to subscribe to Disney Plus to watch this, because what's happening in that moment is that he has given himself over to the creative process, and he's not afraid to sing words in gibberish until something emerges that's real and that sticks. And so it's another way. And sometimes actually that's a practice of mine that I have used in the past, that I'll part of my davening. When I say davening, I mean divining. I don't mean picking up a prayer book necessarily, which is picking up the Sruti box and playing it and just listening to it, and then just starting to scat. And when I say scat, I mean just sing and in gibberish, right? And allowing whatever emotion that I have at that moment to arise, and a melody might arise, and then words might arise, and then words of a psalm that I already know might arise. It's just a wonderful, wonderful experience that it's a different kind of spiritual practice that is intoxicating, because whenever I come out of that, I come out transformed. And perhaps that is the true meaning of being under the influence of, right? Of being different than you were before. Right?
Rabbi Mark, here's a great compliment for you. When I was watching the Get Back documentary and Paul was doing that, I was actually thinking of you at that same moment.
Wow. Beautiful. Thank you, Hoff. You want to go to Paul McCartney concert together? No,
that's like the technology of the Niggun.
Sure, that's right. To ascend into the and descend into the niggid so that you ascend with it, or however you want to put it. But absolutely, Judith.
Yeah.
So let's
And
come into a
Jay,
landing here. Jay, I
Jay
see,
has his hand
yeah,
up.
Jay, you have your hand up, and
Well, it kind of takes me back to how you started with Dalit, and these are all different types of doors to get from one level to another level. And it could be anything as simple. I did a workshop with the development people at University of Maryland on creativity. And we didn't have wine, but I gave everybody a red rubber nose. And when they wore that nose, they had permission themselves to be a little bit more creative. And there was the secret tool that I was going to bring out later. And all it was a little red nose to put on their noses. And that gave the permission to go into that other state of creativity.
yeah, thank you, Jay. Very, very, very important. And you reminded me, which is why I took off my headphones, of one of the Haggadot that I own, written by Michael Kagan, is married to Ruth Gon Kagan. It's called the Holistic Haggadah. And if you like some of the things, some of the places that we went tonight in terms of both the traditional interpretation and then the hiddenness behind all of the rituals of the Seder, this is a wonderful, it's not a beginner's Haggadah. But it's got some really, really rich stuff in here that's good to refer to. At our Seders, we have like 10 Haggadot on the table. And I'm always picking one up and looking into different ones. Miriam, hi. So let's, unless anybody has any closing comments that you feel like you need to say, I want to thank you, Marc Kronisch.
Yeah, I want to clarify something before we break up. I had mentioned the Musar movement, and I remembered what I wanted to say. In that we look at different midot, which are our character traits. And so we work on those individual character traits, some of which might be humility, faith, anger, generosity, trust, love, loving kindness, courage, patience, responsibility. And so that's what I was referring to when I said tikkun nefesh, which will eventually lead to a higher level of the soul and hopefully to tikkun olam as we work on ourselves, all of us as a world.
And just to make sure we're on the same page, tikkun nefesh is repair of the soul, and tikkun olam, repair of the world.
Yeah.
So thank you, Marc, for another episode of the Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
So we had a hope, Judith and I actually, for a quick poll of everybody who came tonight. And we're going to repeat this at the end of Shabbat on Shabbat morning. And then next Wednesday night, surprise, surprise, Deborah and Carol Ann at the Moshe meetup, which we didn't quite get to putting the poll in. But you don't have to say anything. We would just love to see by raising your hand. This is a totally different topic. How many of you, if you would be interested in a retreat, which we've been talking about, right? Want to be a little more specific, Judith? We're hoping it to be Chol HaMoed Sukkot, which is like the third, I think, Shabbat or the second weekend in October. It would be in the Washington, D.C. area. You need to unmute, Judith. Judith,
yeah. These surveys are to assess real interest for an in-person Moshe retreat. And while your answers tonight are not binding, they will be used to take action soon or to wait for more clear impetus in the future. And we're basically envisioning a fall retreat located within a 1 to 3 hour drive from the DC metro area. It's accessible to 2 to 3 airports, and it would be for a Thursday through Sunday period, costing approximately $500 to $600 or less, double occupancy, all meals included. And So we could do this one. I could just count people because we're a small enough group.
Just
Is this Pearl Stone are you talking about?
No,
We're
it's
not
Woodland.
saying- we don't know where. We're just
where is
telling-
it?
we just want to get a feel for if it was just an hour to 2 hours or 3 hour drive for someone like yourself, Mark. You don't have to fly in an airplane because it will be in the DC metro area. Would you come? You know, we need to know if people are ready to spend the cost for these kinds of things. Lots of questions. This will be a good way to, okay, Meyer Bracha. You're muted.
Okay, I am definitely interested.
Okay, no, I'm not gonna, actually, right now, are there questions about the survey? And then I'll ask you the survey and I'll count your votes. And then you won't vote the next time we do it, because we're gonna do it like.
And we're not holding you to anything either.
Right, it's just to get a feel. Are you ready to cast your vote, or are there any questions about you are,
You have
okay.
you have the poll up for Judith?
I don't think I can do it.
Okay, okay, so how do you want?
Ask you. So here's the question.
Okay.
So it's going to be, the answers are yes, no, or maybe. Assuming the dates, the costs, the location, and the COVID situation worked for you, would you attend an in-person Moshe retreat? Raise your hand if it's a yes. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of you said yes. Okay. And then,
Elliot, are you raising your hand, Elliot? He's not even.
I bet he would.
No, I'm here. I'm a maybe, and I gotta go. Bye.
Okay, bye.
He's a maybe. Okay. And then how many people are a clear no? Anyone? Okay. And how many people are a maybe besides Elliot?
Okay, Miriam was a no.
Oh, Miriam was a no. Okay.
Maybe we just need to do it as Santa Fe.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we have 2.
Yeah, if you did it in New Mexico, I'd be there.
All right. Okay, and do you think this needs to be confidential, just out of curiosity, just a quick show of hands, if you think these surveys work better, something like this? Okay, now my next question real quick is would you prefer it to be 2 nights, a Friday and Saturday, or a 3 nights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday? So raise your hand if it's a 2 nights, if you're for 2 nights. Four, 5 of you, right? 5 of you said 2 nights. Let me just write this down. And then how many people prefer 3 nights? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mayura Bracha, are you, 6. Are you raising your hand now for this one or no?
I did raise my hand for 2 nights.
Okay.
2 nights. Okay, so it's 6 for, okay. All right, thank you guys. This is so helpful.
Can I ask you a question, Judith?
Yeah.
You mentioned the second weekend in October. Is that like a definite?
No, no,
Date?
definitely.
Oh, okay.
He mentioned that. That's why I didn't mention it, because we can't say yet, but we'd hope, that's our dream, would be the last weekend of Sukkot, which is like October 13th to 16th. But
Chol HaMoed. But we'll see. So thank you. We're not going to take any questions about this right now. There'll be plenty of time to do that. I want to respect all of our time. So thank you all so much. So next week is the Moshe meetup, and in 2 weeks we're going to do songs of the Passover Seder. Marc Kronisch, thank you so much, my friend. I'm not sure you know this one, but we used to do this when my kids were little. And we all marched around from the dining room through the living room, where there was blue crepe paper that they crashed through, representing the Sea of Reeds. When we all reached the Red Sea, when the Lord split the waters, when we all crossed the Reed Sea, singing, Lord, deliver me. when we all reached the Red Sea, when the Lord gripped the water, when we all crossed the Red Sea, singing, Lord, deliver me, my Lord, deliver me, my Lord, deliver me, my Lord, deliver me, singing, Lord, deliver me, my Lord, deliver me, my Lord, deliver me, my Lord, deliver me, singing, Lord, deliver me. Quick question, can you hear me any better this evening? Thumbs up, excellent. Because the mic is right next to me, because the Lord delivered a package from Best Buy right to me. Oh yeah, the Lord delivered me. Best Buy did deliver to me. Oh yeah, Lord, deliver me. Singing, Lord, deliver me. My Lord, deliver me. My Lord, deliver me. My Lord, deliver me. Singing, Lord, deliver.